Welcome to another episode on the Home Tech Talk podcast. My name is Jake.
And my name is Aidan.
On this episode, we caught up with James Hickey, who is the CEO at Lifesize Plans.
Yeah, in this episode, we got to experience the benefits of understanding your floor plan in a one-to-one scale and explore some of the opportunities that the scaling technology offers.
Yeah, so we hope you enjoy this episode, and if you are liking our content, feel free to like and subscribe to keep up to date. James Hickey, welcome to the Home Tech Talk podcast.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Well, we are in your enormous space.
Size does matter.
Size does matter. I'm not too sure if people listening can understand the scale, but people watching can definitely see some scale.
It's like I was saying before, it's actually a really interesting thing. People that come in and know what we do, even when they open those doors for the first time, everyone goes, wow. And, 650 odd square meters of projection area, bigger than a lot of homes these days. So it's a really nice big space to walk into and play. And that's what this place is. It's a nice play zone.
Yeah, it's definitely an enormous scale once you walk through those doors, and I was pretty blown away. And you've got a lot of projectors above us and next to us.
Yeah, 12 projectors overhead, and we've got 4 projectors normally on the wall as well. So there's a few projectors to edge blend and make sure that our one-to-one scale is spot on.
Yeah, awesome. Well, if you wanted to give our listeners a bit of an introduction into yourself and your background, and then I guess, talk about Lifesize Plans and how you moved into Lifesize Plans.
Yeah, so personally, carpenter by trade. So I went out of school, like most kids that get out of school, your parents sort of say, go get a job. First one happened to be apprentice carpenter. Fell in love with that, fell in love with the building industry straight away. And post-trade, worked for myself for a little while. Then did the whole transient backpacker scenario, went overseas for a few years and came back home and realised that I need to start planning ahead. At that stage, worked for myself for a little while and then got into the corporate space. And that's where I realised that I had a knack for project management, systemisation and growing companies. So jumped around a little bit for a couple of years and then found myself as a chief executive officer for a company called Maincom. Was there for just around 7 years, and we grew that from a nice SME company up to quite a large company, to be one of the largest insurance builders in Australia, specialising in disasters like cyclones and earthquakes. And Christchurch earthquake was a great example of that as well, and really specialised in the homeowners warranty space as well. And so when a builder goes bankrupt, being able to come in and solve the massive amount of issues that are left after that, trust in builders, legacy issues with potentially defects there. Some builders forward billing so much, then, trying to cash flow their own jobs and then not delivering on the milestones that they should have done to get the actual job done. So a lot of horror stories, a lot of lessons as well of what to do and what not to do. And that's where I guess I really got to a point in my own career that I wanted something more challenging and something to be able to scale something that had never been scaled before. And so at that stage, I was looking around for different things, and Lifesize Plans came up and I went, you know what, this is something that's never been scaled before. With my homeowners warranty background in looking at, I guess, root cause analysis, I fell in love with what this could do for the industry. Being able to have stakeholders all agree on what designs were going to be done up front, link that into contracts, link that into all the different parts of our complex industry and make sure everyone's on the same page. So that's where I fell in love with the product. So a bit about Lifesize Plans. So started 2017. So the founder, Chris, is a local builder, so does a lot of work around Stratfield and Newtown area in Sydney, and really in that custom space. Doesn't need show homes, very much about tailoring a project to the homeowner's needs. And he always, had the issue like all builders do, like how do I engage with my people that are going to be, become my clients? How do they understand what they're going to get and not get to the point where variations come down the track because they go, well, that's not what I thought we discussed. And that's a common item in all trades and all building companies. So it was actually when he and his wife were building their own home that she came up with the idea of, well, what if I could actually get projection of this, and that's where Lifesize Plans was born. So it was actually in a partnership between the two of them. And instead of finishing that first house, they actually put the money into Lifesize Plans. And so we've been established here in Auburn since 2017. Between 2017 and 2020, it was very much that part with Chris and sort of side part of his own business. And even though it was a separate brand and everything else, it was very much his little baby that he knew had legs. And there was a lot of people that came on board, some larger firms that went, well, this has got something, I want to buy in. But Chris held back until he found some investors that he aligned with. And so mid-2020, a restructure was done and some new stakeholders and, a whole new company structure. And then they went out to market and looked for a chief exec to actually scale it around the world. And that's where I come into the picture. So our paths just crossed at the right time. Myself looking for something to scale, construction, tech, that's pretty much my two loves. And to be able to combine them both here is pretty fun for myself.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea of getting that collaborative environment together to solve a problem before it becomes a problem, make sure everyone understands what they're dealing with. I think this is a really great way to convey that message.
It is, and especially, a lot of, and I think we spoke about this before, a lot of people don't like to look ignorant in front of another person. And so a lot of people will never actually say, sorry, I don't understand exactly what you're saying. And when someone's building something which is like construction, everyone builds something in their head. And so even a builder talking to another builder technically could have a different plan in their own minds of what the actual end product's going to be.
Yeah.
And for everybody to be able to, in a very simple, pragmatic way, be able to look at the plan in a one-to-one scale, all the penny drops, and they just go, right, we're on the same page now, and this is what needs to be done different, or everyone shakes hands and they keep moving forward. But on average, what we have found, every time someone comes in, on average there's around 6 changes that people make. And it's not necessarily that someone's done something wrong or a design issue. It's just the fact that the person living in the house or the stakeholder that might be commissioning the project is going, well, that's slightly different than what I was considering. How about we talk about it? And that's where those changes gets done live here. A lot cheaper to make them here than once you've poured a slab and once you start standing walls. So the stakeholder engagement here is fantastic.
Yeah, it's incredible. You can actually walk through any of your spaces, get a true sense of scale, understand exactly where each part of your floor plan is going to work, floor plan flow. It's really, really helps translate that.
It does. And I guess, sort of giving the history. So based on Chris being a custom builder, that's where I guess most of our clientele came through. That custom build market where they've got, a builder that might do, sub 10 projects a year, very one-off style projects. And our process is we have partnerships with builders. We also, go straight out to the end client. So if they want to bring their builder in, a lot of clients come in that way as well. But standard journey is they find us, they book an inspection in, they come through, we'll have their plans on the floor before anyone arrives. We'll ask them leading questions beforehand. So some people love furniture and props and we'll lay that out before someone comes in. It's like the furniture we're sitting on here today on the plan, and welcome them through the door. We'll take them upstairs to a mezzanine level and they get to look down on a helicopter view onto their plan. We then really try and understand where they want to spend their time. So our role does change on the type of clients we come through. So if we've got a builder, really we're just sitting there as a builder support. So if he wants to move the plants around, we move them. He wants furniture moved, we move them, and we really take a back seat. If we get a husband and wife who've never built before, the builder's not here, and they just really want to understand it before, they take the plunge, then we take more of a detailed approach in with them. And it's, again, not a building consultant perspective. It's more of all right, let's go into your lounge room. How are you going to use this space? And then we go into the laundry. How are we going to use this space? And then really just make sure that they're comfortable, because this is a really simple way for people to get what their house is going to look like before it's even built. And so you get a lot of husbands and wives come through and say, well, that's not exactly what I was thinking. It's like, why am I walking from one end of the house to the laundry to the other end of the house to get outside the door so I can go hang the clothes, as one example. You get a lot of people wanting the shopping list, the checklist. I want a butler's pantry, I want a mudroom, I want a study, I want all these things, and they get them. And then when they actually look at how they can cram it all into a house, they go, it doesn't work. And so a lot of people end up losing some of the checklist items just to make sure that their house flows. And that's the key thing. It's about optimization of space. It's around the functionality of people actually understanding what it is from their minds to actually see it. And once you've got that initial foundation right, then you can go crazy and you can start looking at the next stage. So a lot of our clients then come back, but they come back with their renders done. And so they might have 3 kitchen colour schemes. And so we'll put the colour schemes on the wall. They've already decided the kitchen layout is what they want because they were here last time. And then they look at which designs suit, the system that they want. And then we've also got a lot of clients who are now starting into the virtual augmented space as well, and we can stitch that over the plans at the same time. So the beauty about augmented reality in a lot of models is it's also one-to-one scale. So when you're scrolling through we can anchor our plans to the same point of that virtual model, and you can walk through in unison of the plan and the virtual model at the same time. So it really starts blending in all the different great stuff that's coming in construction, but it makes it very pragmatic. And I guess that's our value offering to the market is we're not here to replace augmented reality. We're not here to replace anything and say that this is better. It's really get the fundamentals right here first and then start bringing it all together at Lifesize Plans. And that's our vision, to be able to be that ecosystem, that meeting space where builders, trades, homeowners, designers, they can all come hang out, all the stakeholders get on the same page, and then they're ready to move on to that next stage with their project.
Yeah, it's really a good space to enhance collaboration as well. I think that, having all those parties on board, such as the architect, builder and homeowner, really here and actually seeing and envisioning the space can really help with, decisions being made, as well as, like you were talking about before with the checklist, some of those things may not fit in the space, but it's really good to be able to visualize it and be able to walk around, and I think it really helps out with collaboration as well.
Yeah, and further on to that collaboration. So once we started going out to market, we realized there was a lot more value just outside of custom builds. Yep. So we've had a few project home builders. They produce a lot of them, but there's still that they've got a certain amount of display homes, but not every display. And so a lot of people understand the basics of what they've got. They've got the touch and feel from the display villages, but they've wanted some changes, but they don't know if it feels right. And so they come in just as that security blanket before they, finalise that contract as well. And we're also getting a lot of more larger commercial, retail, restaurant spaces as well. And that really links into the stakeholders. So, you've got your chef, you've got your front of staff, very, very two different responsibilities, very different paradigms of what they want out of their spaces. And for a whole restaurant and all their staff to be able to come in and look at how they're going to use that space, you get fights, you get people putting their stamp on it, but at least they know by the time it goes to that construction phase, everyone's got what they wanted and what they needed out of that build as well. And, we've also had some hospitals come through, and really, again, when we see those guys, it's around the people that are going to be using the space, talking to the designers. So the designer's given a beautiful plan, all the functionality that was down from their remit, but then it's right, well, this is how I'm going to use this space. It's not quite what I thought. And then all those changes get made again before it goes to construction because, with cost rising, with LDs, with all the great things that happen in construction, with, making sure the projects are tight and locked in, you want to make sure it's done before you get to contract stage because then, a lot of people, especially with what, a lot of people are forecasting with a few builders going under already in the last 6 months, there's going to be a lot of cost pressure and you want to make sure that you've really got that nailed before you start procuring your materials, start procuring your trades. And I guess the procurement of trades is where we see potential for the next iteration of Lifesize Plans in the market. That's where guys like yourself, you're going out, you're tendering, you're making sure what you guys need is also included into that prospect and you're not locking yourself into a contract that you're going to lose money on. So it's really that stakeholder scenario. There's so many stakeholders in the building industry. It's not just the homeowner and the builder. It's all the trades. It's the councils. It's the regulatory. It's so many. It's so diverse.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that there's this conception that variations are beneficial for somebody, as if builders make great money out of variations or subcontractors make great money out of variations, but it's truly not the case. If any variation can be avoided, it's best for everyone. If you can get it as right as possible at the outset and have everything that we're going to do tied up in the contract and everything that we're not going to do excluded or noted in the contract as being excluded, all those things up front just make for such a smoother project and they save everyone cost. They benefit to everyone to have that resolved up front.
Yeah, that hidden thing called time. And at the time and money, it is a true analogy. And, if you're going out there and you're doing the variations, yes, you might make more on the contract, but how much have you eroded out of your margin as a trade to get it to that stage?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we see it all the time. I think I was describing before a bit of scope creep where we take on stuff that was just left unaddressed at the outset. Mm-hmm. If we can get into a space like this and actually walk through with people and say, light switches are here, these are the things that you're going to need to be able to use, touchscreen, if you need an intercom call or whatever you happen to do from a technical point of view, this is how it's going to work. We're going to put wireless access points in these areas. This is where your range will be. All those sorts of things are really great opportunity to be able to discuss that up front.
Definitely. And the ability for us to then mark up the plans here and make sure again, from a design point of view, you're also reducing your time. And that's the other benefit from engaging. And you hear it a lot from yourselves, or you guys even said it to me earlier before, like everyone wants to get as early as they can feasibly into the talks when people are pricing and costing it and doing the project. And for us, it's the same. You look at it, we've got people that have come in here with pure sketches, hand sketches, concept, but then they haven't then wasted potentially thousands of dollars on the architectural phase yet because there's still an idea in their mind. And so they come here first, make sure they're happy with it, and then they take it to the next level. This is what I'm thinking, I'm not quite sure. And then you get some technically savvy people who've got, some of the basic drafting style of things that are online now. Yeah, to use the same thing. Come in, get your idea right. Once you know that, this is technically what I've been thinking, then go to the next stage and start procuring an architect, your draftsman, your designers and your builders and get the whole team in. But know that you've got everything out of that head onto the piece of paper.
Yeah. All right, and what technology is coming next into this space? We just touched on briefly that you're going to start. You've got augmented reality. Does the virtual reality space, do you see that as a potential change, or you like the in-room collaboration type of environment?
Lifesize Plans were all about that collaboration piece, as we've been discussing. Like we're probably going to say collaboration 500 times in this podcast.
We're a big fan of collaboration.
We are.
But our goal is to be the center of all of the emerging technologies and all the realities, because if you've designed your plan right in your space and it's optimized, then you just start layering the really cool stuff on top of the cake. And so we partner with a company called Envision VR, and they do a lot of the virtual reality and augmented reality models that go on top of it. And so it's the same scenario if you're looking at a property developer. So he might be trying to sell 1,000 apartments or 500 apartments or whatever it is. Come in, they're designing, they're looking at the functionality of their designs here first, nailed it. All right, now let's start looking at how we can solve the plan. And so they're now starting to build the virtual models on top of that, and then we're able to do an open day. So when they're doing a product release, they can come to Lifesize Plans, show all of the apartments, all the different offerings that are there, and then it's like, well, how can we help on the pre-sale side? So, in blending the virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, there's so many realities out there, it gets confusing. But our goal is definitely to be a part of that. So when you get to the next wave of what's happening with things like HoloLens and when they're on construction sites, those slabs down, and they're really looking at coaching people to make sure it's built to those standards and coaching them, the people through the different checkpoints that have to be done with their ITPs and everything. Our vision is to get them right here. And so it's like the next progression point. So slabs down, lands cut, whatever it is, use the same things that you developed here at Lifesize Plans in that one-to-one scale. It's there, it's working, then take it out to the physical world and then make sure that's done and signed off and everything's designed correctly and signed off correctly. So our goal is to be at that foundation level and then have all the different things built on top, with the great BIM software that's out there now and all the different dimensions being thrown on top. Our goal is to be at that base level, come here, do your collaboration, your design, thrash it out, get your fundamentals, and then start putting everything on top. And we'd love people to come back until a time where they've got their slab poured and they don't need us anymore. Yeah. But it really does give that ability for that one-to-one space. We'd love to be starting to get into the education. So we've got some early talks with TAFE, with UTS and alike as well, where we're looking at, well, how can students get the most of this as well? So instead of just doing it on their, A4 screen or, the big curved screen they've got on their desk and not really understand the impact of what it does mean in a life-size environment, they can do that here. They can come in and really just use it as a playground. And that's what we love about this. We get to watch people's homes. There's some really cool homes that we get to experience and see, some really great restaurants and retail spaces. But it really is a fun environment to come in and make sure your design's right. You've got everyone just happy, they're talking, they're all on the same page. No one's defensive because you don't need to be. It's all out there in front of you, so you don't need to pretend that you might know something that you might not know. And everyone actually gets to shake hands and walk out on the same page.
The mistakes are just in software at this stage, so we can make some changes. They're not hugely expensive to alter those things.
Exactly, and that's where some of the technology improvements that we've done over the last couple of years as well. So it used to be just a PDF on the floor. So we'd get a PDF from yourself, and we would scale it. And so I guess maybe a quick pause on how it actually works. So we've got a laptop, So you could email anyone, email your plans on the basic level. It might be just be a PDF at a 1:100. So on our screen, we then slide it onto our two big screens. This is probably the easiest way to put it. So most people have I used to the analogy of a laptop and a bigger monitor. We've got two massive monitors also added to that. Yep. And so the first big monitor is our wall, where we put mainly our elevations and our, the nice facade where someone can walk in and see what their home is going to look like, which is what's behind us at the moment. And the big 6K screen is what we've got on the floor. So what we're sitting on at the moment is 17 by 33 meters, thereabouts. And we really, all we do is zoom in and zoom out based on the dimensions on the floor, and we get a tape measure out. So it's a really simple old school way. Once you've got the tech side of it nailed with the edge blending and all the projectors all being able to project the same image and not lose the data quality, what we do is just like zooming in, zooming out on your screen. And we just make sure that those dimensions are spot on, so you know that you're building to scale.
So is it hardware, or is it a mixture of software and hardware that...
It's a blend.
A blend.
It's a blend,
yeah.
So the server side of things is very much looking at making sure that we've got the edge blending side done. So there's, a couple of different ways from a blending point of view. You point the projectors in the right way, and that's what the first phase, I guess, of the edge blending. But the next is the software. So the system that we've developed to be able to take out to the world. So we're in Sydney at the moment. We're in Perth. We're going to be opening in France in September, and also in southern Queensland probably around the same time as well. And we're also then going to be targeting North America. Our goal was to build a system that was scalable, and we spent a lot of time. So sort of going back a couple of steps, 2020 was all about bringing the right team on. 2021 for myself was around building the engine and making sure that I had the right team to be able to scale it around the world. So we've got our core base team now, which includes our integrators, our suppliers, and everyone that I trust to be able to deliver a standardized product that is Lifesize Plans worthy around the world. And 2022 was all about raising your sort of head above the fence and starting the marketing push and really taking it out there. So, you can see just by our socials and some of the announcements that we're starting to make that's really starting to gain momentum. And we're looking forward to establishing our first couple of, internationals in the next couple of months, and really then get our next phase of learnings and then take that out to the world and go gangbusters. Because, from our point, and we're always going to say this, we do believe that every major city needs a Lifesize Plans location as big as what you've got here, where builders and designers can all have a place to collaborate and design and make sure their buildings are right. And then it's around the next little iterations. So our plan is also to get into the retail space some stage next year. And, our goal was, how can we relate to everybody that lives under a roof? So it might, maybe linking into your services, it might not be a brand new home. It might just simply be a media room like we're sitting in. They don't need 600 odd square meters. They might need 100 square meters. And so our goal is to build a couple of smaller versions as well and put them in more retail focused areas that link to couches, link to white goods. So you can actually understand, well, I want a corner chase, and how's it going to fit in my space? Well, bang, let's chuck it out. Let's have a look at all the different, furniture options that are in that store, drag them all out on the floor. This one fits, this one looks fantastic, go away, buy it. And so we're then looking at how can we, from a stakeholder piece again, get everyone's understanding of what works. And, in this example, the retailer and the homeowner, making sure that the couch fits.
Yeah, I know my wife would love that. I think we've all been through that, going through the store with the tape measure. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? So,
and even the last couch we brought, I went home and I had masking tape on the ground. So I went into the store, I got all the measurements out, and then I got home and I was masking tape it, and I was that one works, that one doesn't work. But again, from a time point of view, that's 2 or 3 visits to the store. So there is
that's for each lounge.
That's for pretty much by the time you start going back. And also then it's great for the retailer. So if you know that you can have a digital catalog of all your stuff, you don't need to have everything on the floor, and people can actually understand what you've got. And that's where we're really going to be looking at linking into that mixed reality space as well. So if we can get all the digital catalogs, which, on a lot of online shopping centers at the moment, that's there.
Yep.
Our goal is to blend that into what we do on a smaller scale, so the retail section can get a benefit, and also people just repurposing their space. So it doesn't have to be that you're building a brand new home or building a second story addition and you're changing all those structural issues. It's like, it could be just a simple kitchen reno.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rip out my carcasses and I want to redo but how does it work? How many times do you see when the drawers are open, you can't walk through someone's kitchen? So the ability for people to see that in a smaller version of what we've got here is our next iteration of where we see that going out to the world as well.
Yeah, awesome. There's some great potential there for sure.
Yeah, and in terms of the projectors, I mean, I'm really a nerd, so I'd love to nerd out. Is there a minimum requirement of projectors to suit? I mean, for this space, I'm sure there would be, but is there sort of what you implement into a space like this? Is it the amount of projectors, or is it the space itself?
There's a lot of contributing factors. So ceiling heights are a major factor. Anything sort of below your 5 meter ceiling heights, you start adding a lot of projectors, and then you start saying, well, that's not cost viable. So our goal when we're looking at spaces is always to try and find something with around 5, in this case 9 meters high. And if you've got that item, you can really get an optimized amount of projectors coming through. I think, the projectors on this roof cover around 11 square meters each, thereabouts. But if they're lower, get smaller, then you start looking at the lenses, and you start looking at ultra short throw versus short throw. And the lenses cost as much as the projectors. And so a lot of people look at that aspect of, okay, so X amount of projectors, and I can get them for 15 to 20 grand for a really good high-end projector. And then say, well, great. Where does this extra, why is the money doubled? And then you start looking at the lenses. And the lenses are really where the money starts adding up if you don't have the ceiling heights to play with. So, and then you start looking at the lumens factor. Light is always going to be the nemesis when it comes to projection. Natural light pouring through the door. You might have a fantastic building, and it might have an awesome glass facade that looks fantastic, but when you're projecting, that's going to whitewash out half your floor. So then you start looking at design options in regards to curtains, event stage style scenario, like your concerts, where you've got your trussing and your rigging, and then you start encapsulating, your area so you can get a darker environment. We started out with the projectors on the ceiling, which are Epson G series, and they're, from memory, 7,500 lumens. We've gone, for the ones that we're rolling around the world, we've gone with Christie projectors. So we looked at in the market, we did do side by side. We put all the projectors side by side, and we fell in love with the Christie product. They're meant for theatre. They're meant for really good quality. And for our point of view, we want to make sure that we've got beautiful renders on the walls, crisp lines. A black is not a black. It's got to be spot on. So for our point, we've gone with Christie, and we've got some really great supply partnership with Christie, and we've been able to reduce the cost to a point where we compete with the other brands in the market. So we're making sure that when someone buys into a franchise, they're getting great value for money, but also a product that is second to none. So we've really tried to make sure that we've partnered with the right supply chain around the world, and it's been a huge part of our growth strategy as well.
Yeah, they are definitely awesome projectors, the Christies. I know Aiden's a fan.
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Yep, they've done some great things. I mean, one of the things you can't see is that you've got one Christie projector creating a rendered wall, and it's enormous. And normally you would have 4 in that situation.
Yep.
So normally you can get some pretty incredible pictures. And I mean, that's going to be a big issue when you're doing things like retail space and things like that, where people actually expect, or you're doing interior design type of work where people are actually expecting the colours that they are seeing in your demonstration space to actually represent they're going to be seeing in the real world. And that's a critical translation to be able to make.
Exactly, and then you start looking at the resolution of that as well, and then hence we have, for our prototype on that rear wall, we put 4, so that's a 4K wall. Yeah. So the resolution on that's phenomenal. From watching sport all through to looking at your renders and your colours and making sure it is true.
Yeah, and it's bright and it's vivid.
We also have a few speakers around, so I'm sure you guys utilise it for that as well.
Definitely, yeah, nothing like
that'd be a good experience.
The sound resonating, from the speakers here, from being an event. And that's the other things that we've started to go into as well. So we've got this awesome space. We've got some real estate agents starting to release products so they can do a release here. We've got some people, looking at how their investment scheme might be the best for certain individuals. We've got some certain people doing those releases here as well. But it's a great event space at the same time because it's got the size. We're also pricing up a job at the moment for a guy that is into music. And so he's into classical music and telling it via multiple ways of communicating. And he's going to be doing projections on the wall mixed with some classical music on the floor, and it's going to sort of blend together and tell a story. So
wow.
The beautiful thing about what this is, we're going to love what the market brings to what we do, because really it's a projection space. yes, we're targeting instruction straight away, but as we go to the market will start to use it for multiple things. And I'm sure there's so many things we haven't even thought about yet.
Yeah, huge potential.
Very much so. I think the concert space as well, it's just so many spaces that it could definitely be utilized for. But
is there any other way? Like, I mean, what a lot of the things that we deal with on a regular basis are things like lighting control. Is there any way that we're capable, or in its current form, like able to convey what it's like in terms of creating lighting scenes and where lighting layouts are and things like that? Like lighting on a floor plan seems to be a mysterious art to a lot of customers, and they don't really understand why anything is done the way it's done.
So are you talking about just showing the amount of points or
Yeah,
the
like
light
RC
coverage?
Yeah. So like RCPs where they might have, I mean, in a standard house, you'll get just people will just spray down lights across the thing, and it's just like when we do that as an integrator, we're like, is there not a more creative way we could do this lighting? Like it's going to look super generic.
Yep.
So are people looking at, do they do any lighting type?
We're starting to get to that next stage. So the engineering side of the plans, hydraulic side of the plans, and that's where the beauty about what we do,
It's flexible.
whatever you've got that you can put on a screen, we can display it here.
Yeah.
All we need is one dimension to make sure it's to scale so we can be life size.
Yeah.
That's all we need. And then if you've got plans that show lighting being thrown and where the edges finish and where the bleeding starts of the next one to the next, and then you start looking at that to PowerPoints and all the other items that you want, or even if you're looking to make sure that you've got, the double brick wall versus the veneer and, those types of things where you're going to run your cabling through.
Yeah.
Yeah, the answer is yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what have you got to be able to display? Yeah, I think lighting designers are someone that would really benefit from this type of environment and being able to actually demonstrate, this is what lighting will do, this is how you should be utilizing it. I think that's something that has a lot of potential in our market anyway.
Yeah, my brain's sort of ticking of how that could be done also at the same time. Like, if you had it like an automated style plan, we could pull that here and you could actually show like the light on the image is sort of breaching out, and then you could be turning on one room to the next room, or that could easily be done, and the people would really get it because it's not on a screen showing the same thing. It's going to be
real.
there.
Yeah,
and then you can overlay it with some of the furniture. We've even got clients bringing in. From a commercial space, we had a client come through with a whole bunch of poker machines because they were trying to figure out how could they fit all their items into in the commercial space. So there's so many different things that we could do. You could blend it with some of the physical products that you guys need to look at, and how does that work? And then, like I said, it's a playground, and that's the beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Let it take you as far as anything, really. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for the chat, and we look forward to seeing what's next from you guys. But thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you, and I look forward to you guys coming out and, like I said, having a bit of a play and seeing how you can integrate into your own business. It'd be fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we'd love to. We'll throw up a few RCPs and see what we can figure out. But awesome. Well, I guess for our listeners, how do they find any more information about you guys and where you guys are?
Website's always easiest, so www.lifesizeplans.com. All of our locations are there. All our local phone numbers are there. Happy staff, happy to come through, talk about where you are on your journey, be it a residential or a commercial property. And really the key thing for us is understanding where you are in your journey so we can then make sure we tailor the right time slot for yourself.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
We
Appreciate it.
hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you are liking our content, feel free to like and subscribe to keep up to date.
And please follow us on social media at Home Tech Talk.